Welcome Life Science learners to another installment of Life Sciences for you. Trust that you guys are well and looking forward towards our lesson. Let's look at what we're doing today. Guys, we're focusing on nutrition today. In our lesson, we're going to look at the organs, and in that we're going to look at their functions. And also we're going to spend some time looking at two important processes in digestion. The process of ingestion as well as the process of digestion in terms of what happens to food. So let's get straight into the lesson and have an overview of the main concepts and then look at some terminology. I must remind you that this section has a lot of important terms. Terms that range from parts to enzymes to products that are produced. And hence I suggest that you start preparing your vocab list of all these important terms. Let's get straight into these terms and look at them. And as I do that, I trust that you will write down these terms and have a list so that you can refer to them whenever you need to in preparation of an assessment. So let's get straight into the core concepts of our lesson. As I mentioned, it's important that we review what the core concepts are. We're going to spend some time overviewing the process of digestion. We're going to spend some time looking at what are the important organs in our digestive system. We're going to talk about their functions and their role in the process of digestion. And then we're going to pay special attention to two processes, the process of ingesting food and then what happens when food is ingested during the process of digestion. Right. It's important that a whole list of terms are put up on the board that you must refer to. These terms, again, are integral to you understanding processes, parts, and their function. So let's look at these now. Okay, so the process of mastication, another word for mastication is to chew food. And we often use the word chewing of food, but that refers to essentially the physical breakdown of food that happens when it enters the mouth. We're going to mention the term enzyme, and if you recollect, enzymes have specific functions in the body. And in this case, we're going to look at how enzymes speed up or catalyze certain reactions. And that is so that we can have the processes efficiently taking place. We're also going to talk about emulsion, which is basically a fine dispersion of tiny droplets. So we'll talk about what happens to fat droplets during the process of digestion. Carbohydrates, again, is a group of enzymes that are important in the digestion of carbohydrates, which are your simple sugars. We're going to mention proteases, which digest the meat and the proteins to the building blocks called amino acids. Lipase, a group of enzymes that catalyze the breakdown of lipids and fats. The concept of what the lacteal is when we look at the villi, which is again the structures in the small intestine that help us absorb the nutrients. And then the process of removal of excess amino acids called deamination. We're going to mention the concept of what metabolism, again, it refers to all the processes that take place, all the chemical reactions that take place in the body. We're going to talk about the villi as an adaptation in the lining of the small intestine, and we will spend some time looking at that structure in detail. In our focus today will be these two concepts of ingestion and digestion. So ingestion essentially is the taking in of food. The process of breaking that down is referred to as digestion, and we will look at that either being a physical process or a chemical process using enzymes. What happens to that food would be then either absorbed and then it's built up. So assimilate would be to put together into the cells based on how the body needs them, and then the removal of the waste products, the parts that are not digested, that's referred to as egestion or defecation. And finally, we got the last set of important terms, the concept of what is the bolus. Again, when we chew food and that food mixes with saliva in our mouth and we swallow, that ball-like mixture of food with saliva that moves down the throat is called the bolus. The concept of the importance of bile being produced by the liver and how it plays an important role in the digestion of fats in the small intestine. The concept of the exocrine and endocrine gland, which is the pancreas, and those are the functions of the pancreas, which produces enzymes as well as it produces hormones. We also will spend some time looking at the concept of peristalsis, which is again the movement of food from the esophagus all through the digestive system, and then the concept of what is chyme. And chyme again is a mixture of secretions of food and gastric juices from the stomach. Sure guys, so a lot of terms. Okay, let's have an overview of what is nutrition. So nutrition is the biochemical and physiological processes by which an organism uses food to support its life. It includes ingestion, which is taking in the food, digestion, breaking down the food, absorbing the building blocks, then assimilating them, putting them together based on what the cells need, and then the removal of the undigested or parts that are not needed. So that is nutrition. What are nutrients? So what is the purpose of us consuming food? We need to access the nutrients. Nutrients are needed for us to build, to repair, to grow. So nutrients are compounds found in food that provide us with energy, that facilitates growth and repair, and it helps us to carry out different life processes. So nutrients are important to all organisms being able to survive, live, reproduce, repair, and regenerate. So not all nutrients provide us with energy, but are necessary for some body functions. These can be divided into two groups: your macronutrients, which are needed in large quantities. So if you talk about things like proteins, your fats, your lipids, your carbohydrates, those are needed in large quantities and daily. However, we also need some micronutrients, and these are generally required in small amounts. And these can be your phosphorus, your calcium, your magnesium, potassium, that are needed in small amounts but still are crucial. Why is it that living things need energy? So we often feed because we need to take in foods that supply us with energy. Energy, again, is fundamental for all cells being able to carry out basic chemical reactions. So we need that food to provide us with energy, and energy is then used by the mitochondria to produce ATP, which is what's going to power the cells to carry out their functions. And so, as I mentioned, energy is, unlike matter, cannot be recycled. So an organism needs to constantly get energy supplied to it. So guys, we've looked at the core concepts. We've looked at an overview of the nutrition process. Let's have a little comfort break. Let's get re-energized, and when we get back, we will look at the digestive system and organs that make up the digestive system. See you in a little break. Get back soon.